Welcome to Between Two Ovaries, your go-to for all things women's health.
A lot of people just say like, oh, my vagina.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's
all
not,
of the above.
that's not your vagina.
No.
Well, it is.
We're here to cut through the confusion, bust some myths, and give you the facts straight from the experts.
You cannot still believe the amount of people that come to a gynecology clinic saying that they don't look right down there and they need something doing about it.
We're keeping it real, bringing you honest conversations about topics that matter to you.
Everything goes back to the menstrual cycle. Yes, it's a low-risk procedure, but it's not a no-risk procedure.
From periods to menopause and everything in between, we've got you covered.
So whether you're here to learn, laugh, or just listen, you are in the right place.
As soon as I said it. So, today we are incredibly honoured to welcome a true legend in the world of athletics. Paula Radcliffe is an inspiration to runners and sport lovers across the globe. She recently completed the 6-Star Challenge and alongside her myriad of jobs has become a podcaster herself, motivating others to achieve their running dreams. As a former world champion, marathon world record holder, mother and runner, Paula is best placed to help us understand all things about exercise and women's health. So we plan to explore how training, performance and recovery intersect with the unique physiology and experiences of women, from adolescence to motherhood and through to menopause. Thanks so much for joining us, Paula.
Thank you for having me.
So we usually kind of do a bit of like why this episode is so important. And we think this episode is so important, especially in this age of social media where when I was growing up, it was all about being waif-like. Then it went being to everyone needs big boobs. Then everybody needed a big bum. And I think it does. It's gone through all these different little things. And I think there's just so much pressure on people now with regards to social media that actually wasn't there previously. Yeah. But exercise isn't seen a lot of the time as something that we should do for health. It's seen as something to get the body the right shape. And I think it needs to be brought back a little bit. And that's why we thought it was really important, because it's not just important for those that want to look a certain way. It's important for young people. It's important for old people. It's important at each stage of your life. So we're going to get into some questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course it is.
Brill. As Nick has just said, you have inspired lots of people with your achievements. And we wanted to just start with quite a broad question, really, about what first drew you into running and how your relationship has evolved over the years, your relationship with exercise.
It's a really difficult question for me to actually answer because I don't actually remember the time when I started running, if that makes sense. I just always seem to have remembered running. My dad ran some of the early Mersey marathons and the first couple of London marathons. And so I clearly remember going out for runs with him, joining in for little bits in the forest, and then joining a club when I was 9, but I was already running before then. Primarily I joined the club because I just loved the feeling of running, and I had a really good friend at school and she was a year older than me and she had already joined Frodsham Harriers, so I knew that you had to be 9 to join, and I was basically waiting, and my dad took me down on my 9th birthday and signed me up for that. And then, I mean, we're talking the 80s, there weren't that many sports available. So I think I did athletics and judo. I did judo until I moved down to Bedford. So I was 12 and then stopped when I turned 13 just to concentrate more on athletics because I enjoyed the social side of it more. And I felt like I was more at home in the athletics there than I was on the judo. So I kind of sacrificed that to go a couple of times a week to athletics. And I think just kind of harking back to your previous statement about sport and the pressures on young girls now, and I see it so much through my own kids, this kind of scrolling through social media. We didn't have any of that. So for me, it was like, I think probably, I can't even remember when, but probably at some point during my teens, I realised, I haven't got a socially conforming body, but I have a body that works for me because it helps me to get the most out of my sport. So I think if I hadn't have done that sport, I probably would have suffered with a lot more self-confidence issues than I did do, because while I recognised it wasn't kind of a body that was going to be attractive in lots of ways that social media would portray that as, for me, it helped me to perform, and it didn't let me down through puberty, which is a mile like it's a minefield for so many teenage girls coming through that, and boys as well in a different way. And so it didn't let me down through that at all. It kind of cruised me through it. We obviously had hiccups, but nothing dramatic, and I was extremely grateful for that. So I think sport really helped put that twist on it that way.
That's a really good point as well, and ties in with what you were saying at the beginning about maybe that's the lesser known the lesser focus with exercise. Like, it's not all about how it makes your body look, it's about how it makes you feel and how confident it can make you, knowing that you are, you know, strong or able to do something and achieve things. And that's something that really should be at the forefront of people's minds.
And the social side.
Totally. I mean, you become so much more in tune with your body. To the point that, I mean, little things through my life have really shown me how sport has helped me to have a better understanding of my body. I mean, I knew I was pregnant before the pregnancy test told me I was pregnant, because I just felt different, and I could tell that I felt different. I knew I had COVID before I COVID tested positive, because I knew it was bad, and I was like, if this is that bad, then it's got to be COVID. So little things like that, you just become a little bit more in tune with your body. Things that you're not tolerant to, food-wise, you realise it sooner when you're involved in sport. So I think just opening up that side of it is hugely important. And equally, as you navigate changes, whether it's puberty, whether it's menopause, wherever it is, being more in tune with your body helps you to get through that. I'm sure it does.
No, I'm sure it does. And you touched on the social side as well, and I think there's a lot of when people are parents these days and they're like, oh, my kid just stays in all weekend, they don't see anybody, their only social interaction is with the headphones on for somebody. And I think picking up that you liked the social side of running then, that can be, like, now people need to get out and see people and speak to people, because that's how you get your social interaction, and you know that you're able to socially interact with people, and you will need to at different points in your life, through hardships, through good times, through interviews, through for so many different things. If you can have a conversation and you can spark up a conversation, I think it is helpful.
And like making friends as well that are similar.
Totally. And making friends with similar interests. And I think that's what sport does. It introduces you to a whole group of people who you might never have crossed paths with otherwise, but love the same thing that you do because they're doing the same sport that you do. So that's hugely invaluable, I think.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to young girls that are wanting to get into running or different exercise clubs, especially at the time of puberty, because we do know there's quite a lot of dropout from sports at that age?
Yeah. And that's why I think it's hugely important that you do what you love doing. You pick something that really lights up a passion fire for you, like you really want to go and do it, because there will be tough times. But if it's something you bottom line want to do and makes you feel better, you'll keep going back to it. And the other thing I think is patience. And find someone. It can be your mum, it can be an older sister, it can be a friend at the athletics club, it can be whoever, but find someone that you can just ask those questions to without being embarrassed. Like, is it normal that I'm doing this? Is it normal that I've got this pain here? Is it normal that I'm spotting at this time? All little things like that. Just don't be afraid to ask the questions. I think that's the biggest thing. It doesn't matter who that person is, but there needs to be somebody that you can go to and just say, I'm worried about this. And it might be nothing, but they can reassure you.
I think there's so many really good projects about pushing so that periods are more visible and we know what's going on and we know what our bodies doing at different times of the cycle. It was in the news over the weekend about that it should be that boys and girls are taught together about periods, and this information needs to be given out so that people understand what's normal and actually what's not normal. And I think it's that kind of, instead of, and it used to be when I went to school, but it's echoed actually in loads of people that I speak to nowadays who are much younger, that actually when it got to they were started their periods, it was just a good excuse to get out of PE. And you just think, oh, it's such a shame, because that's the right time, and going through puberty, that's a good time from a hormone wise that you should be doing exercise and kind of making yourself
there's also a lot of, when it comes to puberty, the kind of embarrassment and not being good at something when you do it, and maybe making a bit of a fool of yourself. But that's when I would say running is a really accessible sport, because you don't necessarily have to do it with anyone else. You can just go out on your own. You don't have to be very good at it. You can run and walk until you get a bit better. But I think it is difficult to actually get out and do it for the first time when you are in your teenage years. years because you'll feel potentially like you're not very good.
And that's why I think it's safer and it's more pleasant to do it with a group in your teenage years. I think later on you can absolutely, as you said, you tailor it to your own needs. But I think when you're a teenager, it's really hard to know, okay, what do I actually want to do? Because you haven't tried it all. What works for me. So I think that's why going to a club where there are even just 2 or 3 other people makes a huge difference. If they're your age and you can chat together and you can kind of grow and explore it together and keep the emphasis on having fun through that and learning the skills. It's like, I repeat it over and over and over to my kids. It's not about being a champion in your teens, ever. It's about laying the groundwork and learning. And if you walk away from a race and think, okay, I could have done better if I'd done that, that's great. But
really
give yourself a pat on the back for giving the best that you have done in that race at that time, because that's what you want to do. It's not about being the best kid, because very rarely does that best kid make it up to the best senior at the end.
Well, they're potentially going to be burnt out, aren't they, if they start too early? I think there's a lot of that side of it as well. I think it's a really good point that you made about making sure that you're at a club with other people potentially your age, because you need to be able to speak to people about, right, I'm coming on my period and I'm in a race. What period products would you use? Because it's not an open conversation between a lot of people, and I think it would put you off from racing and competing if you thought, oh gosh, I've got to wear those knickers, and what if I leak, and what if... I think there are so many period products out there that are so accessible that just having that open conversation and that open dialogue, whether that's with your mum, your sister, your cousin, or a sports coach, the sports coach will have been there, they will have seen that, they will have done this so many times. Like, have the open dialogue. It's not an embarrassing thing, it is something that...
It's necessary. And I think, if I give a brief example, so when I actually started my periods, I guess I was quite late starting my periods. I was coming up to my 15th birthday, and I was actually staying over at a friend's house before a race. And my mum was the team manager for the race. So I realised I started my periods as I was going to bed that night before, borrowed a tampon from one of the other girls, not a problem. Then went to change it the next morning. I couldn't get out, really hurt. So I had to borrow a whole load of pads and went to the race. And then I can remember saying to my mum, I can't get it out. It really hurts. And she's like, I can't be ready to. I'm like, it must be ready to, because the rest of the blood is coming out. So it has to be ready to come out. So anyway, not much we could do about it then. I ran the road relays that day. And then ended up later that day actually on the bathroom floor, and my mum having a look. That's what I mean. It's not being embarrassed to say to somebody, can you have a look? Turns out my hymen was still intact. And it stayed intact into my 20s.
Oh, gosh. So
and I actually don't know, maybe 18, 19 it started. I don't remember when it disappeared, because I got so used to moving the tampon around it that you just had to make do with it. And I just had like one that was really strong, and you could just stretch it to the side, get the tampon in and out, be absolutely fine. And it just disappeared on its own. But I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't had someone to turn to ask me, and equally a good doctor and GP to go to and say, look, is this normal? And he's like, well, it's very unusual, but it's not abnormal. There's nothing wrong with it, and you're just basically going to work around it. And I did work around it to the extent that I don't know when it disappeared, because I was so used to it.
Just like,
I just realised one day it wasn't there anymore.
Oh, great.
I love that story. I think it's a really good, like, another taboo subject is like the hymen, isn't it? And like what people think it means.
Because I actually thought it was some medieval thing. It didn't actually exist anymore. And I thought there's no way someone who does as much sport as I've done would still have that. And that's why I said it, because it is really unusual. Basically the only other time I'd heard about it was Flowers in the Attic. I don't know if you remember. You're too young for that.
Oh, I don't know it. That means I'm too young. I think that's brilliant, because also, with like topics like that, I think a lot of the time the only thing that gets talked about is the myths. So like, if it's intact, that means you're a virgin, which isn't true at all. But actually talking about it in a real sense, like you just have, is really good, because there'll be someone out there that will listen to this that might have had the same experience as you, but would have not
and
known
there
how
are
to talk
so
about
many
it.
young girls that you meet in sport that just say, no, I can't use a tampon. And don't then go to the next thing of, why can't I? Is it just because I'm scared to, or is there actually maybe a physical reason why you can't that can be sorted out?
I do kind of think,
because they make life So I was just going to say they make life so much easier.
Yes, they do. So much easier.
Yeah, especially in sport, yeah.
I do think that though is like more with younger people these days, because again there's a lot of things on social media about not using tampons, and if you've seen bad stories about using tampons or why you shouldn't use them, you're then going to be like, oh, you shouldn't use a tampon. Or if you've got a mum that's like, oh no, I don't use them. It's the same with the coil, it's the same with other long-acting reversible contraceptives. People just get it in the head that they don't want to use it, and you're like, but why? Could we just break that down? Like, is there a physical issue? Is it like a mental block on it? Is it because it's painful? Is it, what is the problem about using tampons? Because as you said, for a sport point of view, I think they make everything so much easier, because you just know that you're sorted, don't you?
Yeah, you just know that that's okay. You can get on with what you, especially if you're in the water or if you're some kind of swimmer, then they're really invaluable to be able to keep on training, and so much more comfortable for any other sport.
No, I agree. When you we digress. When obviously you're an elite sports person, do kind of coaches speak to you about periods? Do you discuss about kind of long-acting reversible contraceptives and stopping your periods, which stopping your periods in a good way, not stopping your periods in a because you've lost your period way?
They do. I still feel like it's got a lot of room to evolve. Okay. This is coming from somebody who obviously came through British athletics system when there were a lot of male doctors in there. It wasn't so much tailored to females, but in the beginning, when I went away to university, my periods became a little bit more irregular. I mean, I would be getting maybe 2-3 a year, primarily in my kind of downtime, so my time off between racing seasons. And my mum took me to see a doctor, and he said absolutely nothing to worry about. As long as you're getting a couple a year, that's not something to worry about. British Athletics decided at that point. He was totally right. He was totally right. He did all my bone density checks. He did
as long as you're on those. I thought you'd lost your period, and they were just like, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it.
The danger for me was the knee-jerk reaction of the medics on the athletics team, who went, right, okay, because you're not getting regular periods, that's really bad. You're going to get injured. You're going to get red. You're going to do blah, blah, blah. You're not eating enough. So basically, we're going to put you on the pill. So they put me on the pill, which I badly reacted to. Okay. Started spotting 10 days into it, really just didn't get on with it at all. Felt like I was retaining water, felt really bad. Yeah. Ended up, that happened at spot in the day of my race for selection for the World Championships in 1993. And so only for other girls, and a big shout out to Alison Wyeth, who was on the team at the time, who basically took me under a wing, took me aside, like, here, you're just going to put a tampon on, you're going to get on with it, you're going to be absolutely fine, because I wasn't prepared, because I shouldn't have had my period that day. Yeah. And it totally threw me. I didn't get a good enough result to get selected. I did end up ultimately getting selected, probably because I lost it and screamed at the medics, like, what are you doing? Why are you messing with me like this? Because my doctor said I was fine, stopped taking it, was absolutely fine. He had checked all of my bone density, he had checked all of my other stresses. And for me, that was primarily stress. And I know that because when I finished university and I was no longer trying to combine studying with training, with competing at the high level, then I started getting my periods regularly.
Perfect. Oh, wow.
And I was running more mileage, and I was probably leaner. My body fat was less. Yeah. But it was purely, for me, linked to stress. And the worst thing they could have done was mess around with it in that way. And I really felt then, by talking to other athletes, I talked to Sonia O'Sullivan, I talked to Alison, talked to other girls on the team, and some did use the pill, but a lot of people did feel that it really took away the kind of aggressive instincts that you need as an athlete, and that was certainly my feeling. It wasn't like I felt bad on once found one that agreed with me. It was just I didn't feel like really sharp and really quick in decisions that I would make and instinct wise, and I just felt better not taking it. So what I did was then use the pill that agreed with me for a month or so, 2 weeks, 3 weks, to move my period away from major championships. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. It didn't work the day of the world record in Chicago, but a lot of times it did work, and I was lucky because also the effects weren't massive for me. So it didn't really put me off if it did come race day. It was just easier if it didn't.
It's amazing that you've got these people that you have been able to speak to, and that it's fantastic that you were so close to your mum, that you had that conversation as well. I think so many people these days just wouldn't have that open dialogue. I just think that's that's what needed. You need somebody to have a discussion with, and for it to be out there for people to see all the time. This is normal. This is what's not normal. This is what you can do.
Yeah.
Speak to someone if you've got this. Just because, like, that's what people need. You shouldn't have to be going to hospital under a straw, like a thing of if you've got a tampon that's stuck. Like, because it's a blind ending tube is your vagina. A tampon can go nowhere. Yeah. But if you need someone to like kind of chat to you about it or how you, like, I think it's great.
And
that
it's
you've had these
scary
people.
when it's the first time for anything.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah.
And like,
well, especially when your mum's going, literally just pull. And
But that fear is often because of like a lack of understanding and lack of knowledge, and it's always going to be a little bit scary the first time you do something like that. But if you know what it is, if you know how to put it in, what can go wrong, if you're more well informed, it's less scary. Like with anything. But yeah, definitely important.
Yeah.
So just quickly, one issue going back when you talked about the medics in sport.
Yeah.
The other issue that I kind of really was quite vocal about with the medics was it became quite popular to give the girls or the women who were due their period the day of the race and were starting to feel bad in the bit before, I can't remember the name, it begins with P, that blocks you basically where you are. Mm-hmm. So it stops your period coming on.
Yeah, so progesterone of some sort, like a norethistron.
But it's really bad. Norethistron.
Yeah.
It's really, really bad for actual sport because what it does is block you for most people at the worst time.
I was going to say, I feel like that bit before your period, you don't feel great anyway, do you? You're usually a bit like, and you can have water retention. So actually probably having a period would be better because you would have a release and be like,
you'd be
right,
better
I got this.
having something that would bring it on rather than something that would freeze it. And that's what I kept trying to tell them. And I saw, I don't know how many girls just not run well because they've been told to take that. And I'm like, why would it really
seems
stop?
Like that's just a bit of a lack of understanding about the menstrual cycle, really, isn't it? Because it might seem like, okay, the bleeding bit is inconvenient, you don't want that when you're running, but it's actually the way you feel leading up to your period with the bloating, the tiredness, that is going to also potentially affect your performance. Yeah. So then prolonging that stage isn't going to make it any better. And like you say, a period is probably just with a tampon much better.
Isn't there research as well that the time right before your period is the time when you're most likely to tear a muscle?
There is. We did a bit of research into trying to find out about whether the different phases of your cycle actually do affect performance. And from what we've found, correct us if we're wrong because you might know more than us, is that there's a lot of subjective evidence that there is, it's more, you don't perform as well in the second part of your cycle just before your period, but there's not a lot of objective measurements of it. So it seems anecdotally like that is the case. But
you think that you're worse, but actually you're not worse.
Yeah.
Right.
But with injury, I'm not sure actually.
No, I
think
that's
potentially true because I have seen a little bit of stuff about that I've not looked into yet.
Yeah, I think it's some same reason that it becomes more difficult as you go through menopause because the hormone imbalance, your muscles need those hormones in some way. And as you kind of drop off in the estrogen, that's, I guess, what's happening before your period. A little bit, and the other ones are coming up as well. So that's why I think it maybe just makes you a little bit more predisposed to muscle spasm tightness, which then if you push through, will result in a tear. So it's not that it's more likely to tear, it's just that the actual health of the muscle is a little bit suboptimal.
But I think Paula just skittered across the top of that she started a period on a day where, she broke a world record. She did. Just get that in, guys.
Period didn't hold her back.
Period didn't hold her back at that point. I think we should pick up on REDS now because you've mentioned it, and I think it's such a hot topic at the moment. And I think it's really difficult because people are seeing it as different things, and it's difficult to get over because I'm an advocate of that you exercise because it is good for your mental health and your physical health in all stages of your life, whatever you're trying to do as a woman. And I think having plans that are completely tailored for different parts of your menstrual cycle will actually mean that you're not training enough, you're training in the wrong things. And I think that people are mixing them together now, REDS and your menstrual cycle, and getting a personalised training plan without the evidence behind it. And for our listeners,
I was going to say, can I quickly ask what REDS is?
Yeah.
She's out the loop.
Okay, so I'm sure Paula could tell you what REDS is.
It's relative energy deficiency syndrome.
Okay.
So basically, it's just not eating enough for your needs.
Oh.
So it means that you could end up getting injured more likely to get injured, that you lose your period, because one of the first things that you would stop when your body's in fight or flight mode, it's like, what do I need to be doing? Not making a child right now.
Yeah, fair.
Let's stop the periods. So it would stop the periods, and potentially if your periods have stopped, then your estrogen is going to be dropped. And Paula was saying before about that bone density is one of the issues, and especially in that time when you're in your 20s and your 30s, because that is when you are laying down your bone for later life, because you will lose bone density after the menopause. We can't do anything about that. Like, that is what happens. So you need to be doing these weight bearing exercise while you can, to get as much bone density as possible. Basically.
When you said reds, I was like, reds? Menstrual cycle? Period?
Is it
When you're on your period?
Perfect colour.
It is a lot of kind of mix over, isn't it? I don't know what your thoughts are on. I just think it's really come to the forefront like recently.
And I think certainly within athletics, what we've had also is reds coming to the forefront for males as well, and them actually talking about it and saying we're also doing it, because it's, especially in distance running, it is a huge issue, and a lot of people will look at the most successful runners and say, well, basically, I mean, Mo Farah is just a stick, isn't he? Like, they will say you've just got to be as lean as possible, and they don't get that it's not about being as thin as possible. It's about having the strength, and it doesn't always drop. And the big danger with reds, I mean, anorexia, reds, bulimia, it kind of all meshes in together. But the big danger is that once the damage is done, it's really, really hard to undo that. And you're damaging your future.
I think
it's that message, rather than people thinking, okay, I can do this for short-term gains, because the danger is in the first couple of months, you might actually start running quicker because you are lighter and you've still retained the strength. So for a little, it's like a ticking time bomb. And by the time you actually realise, oh, I've really messed up here, you've done damage. And it's how quickly you can undo that, and do you have the support around you? And so that's why just getting the education out there as much as possible. Like, it's really important that you back your body, that you give it enough to do what you're asking it to do.
Because I think physically it can be damaging, but also mentally, because eating disorders can be quite like addictive.
Oh yeah.
And people, if you start feeling effects of straight away, I'm like, oh, actually this is making me quicker, it can make people go further, spiral further along.
Yeah, it can just become a vicious cycle, can't it? Like positive affirmation of a negative behaviour.
I wonder, I could be far-fetched here, but I wonder if there's any relation with it being in social media more at the minute to do with like Ozempic and Mounjaro, the weight loss drugs.
I think it's a similar thing, isn't it? With, I mean, if people are taking them inappropriately, which is, there's a lot of evidence of people abusing the weight loss injections, that a lot of the problem comes from then, okay, they've lost weight so they feel good, but then they lose muscle mass and they can't exercise as much. And then it becomes well, if I stop it, I'm going to gain the weight again. So when can I safely? And again, it's like a negative cycle where you end up,
but again,
long-term damage.
It's one more of those social media dangers, which is basically just offering a shortcut to people.
Exactly.
Like, you can just get out and exercise and you're also going to lose weight.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've learned over the last several decades there is no quick fix to losing weight.
But people want a quick fix. People want a quick fix for anything, because
the pill that'll sort your life out.
If you can do it quickly, why wouldn't you do it quickly?
Yeah. But there's always a catch.
But obviously
with the
there's
quick
lots of
fix.
reasons why you shouldn't.
Yeah.
That is definitely a catch to that.
So, I feel like we've gone on a few tangents and
We have.
they're all very interesting. I mean, we'll maybe if we come back to the fact that we know, so periods, we want, obviously, the reason we do the podcast, and one of the reasons we're quite passionate about sharing advice about women's health is because we want people to understand more about their cycle, about their periods, and about how that affects their bodies, and that obviously extends to sport and exercise as well. How do you think, Paula, we can help normalise and better understand the impact of periods on exercise, especially for younger athletes? Is there anything that you think we should do, or anything that we're doing already that is working well?
I mean, I think already you're talking about it, so that's already helping. I think putting as much of that information out there in a form that the young girls can really find accessible and will listen to. And I think that's kind of, it feels like it's really evolved so much in that people are now talking about it, not just about the whole period side of it, we've got Davina and people like that talking about the menopause as well, which is brilliant, because the more it's talked about, instead of people having to go to a book to look at it, if it's, for example, Keely Hodgkinson talking on TikTok about how she manages her period, that is going to massively hit those teenage girls. And so just something that is accessible, like me talking about it, is not going to help as much as somebody their own age, or pretty much their own age, a little bit older, who is not that far gone through it, and they can see is a really, really strong role model. So I think it is about just opening up that dialogue and making it something that isn't embarrassing to talk about.
I think it's a really key point you mentioned about in a way that they'll understand it. So that means basically social media. We have to get it in a way that they'll actually take it and read it and listen to it.
Anya Cullen has been quite vocal recently about that she lost her period for 10 months and realised that she was kind of running in a massive deficit and she wasn't getting better because of that. And I think that put it out there quite a bit, which is obviously really good. And I think anybody that can kind of just tell us what's happened, then everybody will be like, oh, that's what's happened to me. Or I did a little webinar for the Wellbeing of Women last week, and a lot of people were asking about REDS and fertility, and I think it's something that I try and speak to my patients about quite a lot. And the NHS is very, there is a very definite cut-off with regards to your BMI and fertility treatment. So your BMI has got to be less than 30 for you to go forward to have fertility treatment on the NHS. And everybody focuses on this BMI. But we know the BMI is not like a really good kind of example of how fit you are or how healthy you are. And we know that people with a normal BMI can be in an energy kind of a deficit, because if they're going to like 7 HIIT classes a week and then going running 3 times a week, then whether their BMI is 18 or 28, it's still going to be not great for their body. And I think it's having this open dialogue and making it more accessible for people. I don't know.
I think even just having the open dialogue to start the conversations as well. Like if someone listened to this podcast and then goes home and is like, oh, Mum listened to this today, what do you think about this? Starting the more people talk about it, the more normal it is. And I think that's definitely needed.
So from a trying to conceive point of view, we always say about staying active is a good idea, but at the moment there's no kind of guidance on what to do. So I always say to people, well, don't start doing something ridiculous. So, if you've always kind of done exercise, then keeping on the same kind of exercise as long as you're having a regular period, I think is completely fine. Do you have that chat with people? Do they tell you about this when you're training?
Actually a lot of people, probably now through the podcast and through more so since I've been retired, but before then it would be me having the chat with those athletes that I looked up to who had children, because it was absolutely something that I wanted to do. Having children was really, really important to me. I'd seen myself as being a mum before I saw myself as being an elite athlete. So it was really, really important to do that. And there were a lot of myths around at the time. People would say, oh my God, if you're racing, it's going to take you ages to conceive. You're not going to be able to do it. Actually happened first time because I was not stressed, I was injured, and we just thought, right, should we just have a go? It will fit in time-wise, because you do have to plan things like that into a racing schedule. So it was like, it works around Olympic cycles, around big races and things like that. Let's just have a go and see if it happens. Totally in my mind thinking might take up to 6 months, 7 months to actually get pregnant. No, happened first time. So it actually worked really, really well. But my biggest experience then was basically, so I got in touch with a sports gynecologist, a guy called Michael Dooley, who helped me brilliantly through my pregnancy. And he basically just gave me the advice of like, you mustn't overheat, you've got to stay hydrated. You can work to quite a high proportion of your VO2 max. So you can still keep doing what you're doing if you're used to doing it already. What you shouldn't do is try and build it up while you're trying to get pregnant or when you're pregnant. So then it got to the point where about 5 months in, I went to meet my gynecologist for the first time, who was going to see me through the birth in Monaco. And she's kind of going through the little quiz sheet, and she's like, what do you do? I'm an elite athlete. What event do you do? Marathon. Yeah, but you're not doing it now, are you? And just come from the track and I'm doing 12 400s. And she went mad. She was like, oh my God, you're going to have shortened your cervix. You're going to go into premature labour. And so she made me come back that night, scared the hell out of me. Made me come back that night, measured the length of my cervix, totally fine. Everything was totally fine. I had more scans because I was training and I wanted to make sure the baby was gaining enough weight throughout. So really glad that I could do that. So basically, I think I went 5, 6, 7, 8 months.
Okay.
So I had a couple of extra scans in there just to check that everything was okay. But then after I had Isla, who actually was 2 weeks late, she didn't come early at all, that same doctor did come round. She was absolutely brilliant. And she said to me, I'm really sorry, I should never have scared you. I'm going to tell all my mums that do sport to the level that you do just to keep doing it. To a lesser level, obviously, but keep doing that sport. She said, because that baby couldn't be healthier and it was a difficult birth. And so those stresses that she was exposed to in the womb through pregnancy as minor stresses actually helped her cope with a difficult delivery, which sometimes happens when you're a sports person as well, because all of your muscles are a little bit tighter and it is a bit harder to get everything to relax so that she could get out. Couldn't fault actually the way that she came and apologised and said I shouldn't have done that. I think just didn't know in the beginning.
I think how it's obviously you're an elite athlete and it's very different to someone who I'm going to use myself as an example. So I do a little bit of running. I'm not an elite athlete, unfortunately, but I enjoy running. And I have recently had a baby, as I mentioned before. So I myself struggled to find information about what is safe to do in pregnancy. I knew it was safe to run in pregnancy, but I wanted to make sure that I had the right information. And I really struggled to find useful, accurate information.
There's so few stuff out there. And it really is, I think, having those extra checks is invaluable. Knowing to check the baby kicking after as it gets further after you've done a workout, but also knowing that really the most likely thing is that while you're running, while you're exercising, that baby's going to fall asleep. So when you finish and you check that it's kicking, it's not, because it's sleeping. So you kind of have to, that was the best thing Michael said to me, he said, come home, have something to eat. The minute you throw some energy at it, then he's going to wake up and start kicking and whatever. So you can just check on that.
But I think you do, I mean, obviously that was a doctor that gave you that kind of, you shouldn't be running at this level. But even so, not at an elite level, when I mentioned, because I wanted to carry on running during the pregnancy, but I actually didn't because I found it really uncomfortable. It made me feel like I needed a wee every step, and I was I can't do this. It's horrible. But I initially was very optimistic, and I was hoping that I'd be able to do the Liverpool half when I would have been about 18 weeks pregnant. Everyone that I mentioned it to, not really friends, it was more like medical people, were like, "Oh, you're not going to do that, are you? Though, like that's a silly idea, isn't it? You're not going to carry on running."
We need to move away from that thing where you're pregnant, so you need to sit down and eat for two, because they're the worst things that you can do.
Because I mean, that's what you get thrown at you. People would sit and say, "What are you doing out running?" I'm thinking, well, as opposed to sitting there watching Netflix with a bowl of ice cream, like, which is actually better.
I think if you're comfortable, if you can do it, and your baby's growing and you feel your baby move, then that should be the frontline advice that you get.
Those people that are saying that never understand is like how vulnerable you are at that time to those criticisms, because the one thing that you want is a healthy baby. So when you've got people saying, "Oh, you're doing that and it's going to harm your baby," that plays on your mind. That's why I think we need to get as much out there that is reliable and true about what actually safely can I do. Because certainly for me, if I was able to do some exercise through, that meant I was going to cope mentally much better, be much happier, and be in a much better place to cope with a newborn baby and cope with a pregnancy as well.
I think the mindset is totally wrong with regards to pregnancy, and it's no matter what, because the RCG have put like a nice infographic out with regards to you should exercise, and we think it's a good idea, and that you only need to have like a slice of bread extra in the third trimester from a calorie point of view, because you don't need to eat for two 100%. And the problem is when you get weighed at the beginning of your pregnancy and people are getting weighed at the end of the pregnancy and they've put 5 stone on, you've got to lose the 5 stone. And I'm not saying that like you've got to lose it in 5 minutes. I'm not saying that you need to be back in bikini body ready, but I'm saying from you being a healthy version of yourself to look after the baby, be able to kind of walk around, be able to go to the classes that you want to go to, be able to kind of enjoy your leave after. It makes it so much easier if you've been healthy throughout your pregnancy.
Can I ask you a question? I actually heard on your podcast, Paula, why is running up hills when you're pregnant the best thing to do? I heard this and I was like, wait, really?
Because I was telling the story about the lovely guy who
we saw the hills and we were like, oh no.
Well, I did a lot of hills worked for me because there's less impact and there's less exactly as you said, it's the bouncing on the bladder, particularly because I guess Isla dropped early, so she dropped right on top of my bladder, so it was really painful some days, and it got not so that it was every other day. And I just found that for me, running uphill, and it was on dirt, running uphill was less impact on my body.
There we go.
People say silly things to you. Like somebody said to me, well, how do you see your feet? And I'm like, just looking down, straight down.
Do we do that anyway?
Yeah, you kind of look ahead to see what you get ahead.
The only time I look down is check my laces are tight.
Yeah, exactly. So you can always see your feet, but you shouldn't be looking down at your feet anyway. You should be looking ahead. So the hills for me just felt like it was a nice way. Plus, it was a workout that I was doing that I was repeating back to a point, so I could stay hydrated, which was really important. So those little things, and just I never used to like running with my phone. My husband, particularly towards the end, he's like, "Can you just please have your phones on?" So if my phone's in the car, then at least I knew that if something happened, it didn't happen anyway. It had to be induced.
So are you running up the hill and walking down, or were you running down the hill as well?
Jogging down sometimes, but I would walk down. I think I would jog down like 3 and then walk down the 4th one. Okay. So break it into sets like that.
Do you know what your problem is why you didn't keep running? Is because it's flat in Liverpool.
That's true. There's not enough hills.
The only thing that helps is a sacroiliac belt.
Oh yeah, like
in terms of like putting that around
belt.
Just to support your pelvis because it also supports the bump and stops it bouncing so much. But it is totally dependent. It's totally dependent though on where the baby sits because my son didn't drop for ages and I could keep running every day through the final month with him. But with Isla I had to go back to every other day purely because my bladder felt bruised.
It does make that kind of recovery easier though when you've been active in pregnancy. I just want to pick up on one thing before we move on to postpartum, because I think we do need to talk about postpartum. It is that when you're in labour now, even if we think that you're heading for a section, you can eat and drink.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that you knew that information now.
Because nobody knew that when I was in labour.
I know, it's awful that they didn't let you eat and drink.
Big, but they didn't. And the worst thing was they said to me, imagine you're in America. I get a drink every 5K.
No, that's crazy.
No, I know. It's like
now.
It's totally pushed that you should carry on eating and drinking because we know from a recovery point of view, if you've not had anything to eat and drink and you're like this shriveled up prune, like you're going to do much worse from a bleeding, from a recovery, from a get like so.
I mean, to be honest, because I had also gone in with that elite athlete mindset of like you need to fuel your body for what's coming. So they induced me at like 6 a.m. Not much was happening, and the dinner trolley came round at like 11:45, and I'm like, oh, I'll have a big spaghetti bolognese. And I had that, and then the contractions literally started just after. So I was fueled. I did have enough.
Well, I think we're definitely more aware because we encourage women to drink in labour and eat in labour because we know that it can halt labour if they're not hydrated and then don't have enough energy.
No, so I wasn't. In fairness, I was on a drip, so I was getting fluids. But it was just you just want to actually eat something.
So we're going to move on to postpartum because obviously we know regardless of what kind of delivery you have, whether it's a vaginal delivery or a C-section, it can be a very complex time physically and emotionally. Our bodies are very different after having a pregnancy and a labour. Regardless of how fit you were before the pregnancy. But we wanted to ask you what your postpartum kind of recovery and exercise looked like. Obviously, you were very active during your pregnancy. Did you find that helped you a lot postpartum?
I did. I definitely made mistakes with the first one that I learned from. So with Isla, like I said, it was quite a difficult labour, but recovered from it pretty well. She was a brilliant little baby and kind of rested fairly well. I was sleeping through the night from about 5-6 weeks, which was a big help. But what it did mean was I got into it a little bit too quickly. So I started back, I think 10 days after I'd had her. Went for a little jog. Obviously things didn't feel great. Primarily I just felt like I needed to go to the loo because all of my muscles just hadn't tightened up enough. But I didn't really understand and have that information as to what that was at that point. So gradually built back up, and I thought I was being smart because I was replacing my second run of the day once I was able to get that in with an elliptical session, and nobody told me that the elliptical stresses the sacrum as much as running. So what I ended up with was a sacral stress fracture because my ligaments hadn't got tight enough to support the sacrum fully, so I was just doing too much of this backwards and forwards on it.
Can I just ask what an elliptical
that was my question.
Sorry, an elliptical is like it's basically like a cross trainer. So there's no impact, so which is why I thought it was better. but you're moving your feet backwards and forwards on paddles in a straight forward and back movement, and all that's doing for the sacrum is just moving that all the time. And because the ligaments weren't strong, so I would have actually been better off getting in the pool or not doing that second session or running, because at that point probably my body would have said, you know what, ligaments don't feel right, I need to stop, and I would have backed off. But because I felt fine on the elliptical, I ended up with that sacral stress fracture. So that was a big lesson learned for the second time. And the second time I gave it a good 2 weeks, and then I started back into running, and I just ran. And I didn't use the elliptical side of it to reduce the impact. I just either got in the pool or just didn't do as much, and kind of built up more gradually. The second time I did suffer with, I had a postpartum hyperthyroidism.
Oh, okay.
Which I didn't pick up on until, so Ralph was born in September, got back into training over Christmas, seemed kind of okay, went away to altitude training. Again, seemed okay, but I was losing too much weight and I was really struggling. So I was trying to eat, like I was just losing it really, really fast. And my heart rate was high.
I was just about to say, you've always said that you are really aware of what your heart rate is, and that's kind of your insight into something going wrong. I was like, did that kind of was like, alert, my heart rate is high?
That's what it was, just when I was running. So my actual resting heart rate was not, that was normal. So I would take that first thing in the morning, that was normal. It was on my longer runs, and it would be over 200 for at least an hour of that run, which was way too high, and I knew that was not right. So that's when I started asking around, and it took a while to kind of get that diagnosis. And then the kicker is they say, don't know what to do about it, nothing you can do, it just goes away on its own. Like, well, how do I know? And it disappeared probably about a month before my first race back, which was the Berlin Marathon. So it was good in that I was okay for that. It would have been better if it disappeared a little bit before. But I guess once I just knew that I had to just really almost, by my standards, overeat. And that was the point in my head, because I guess I had my baseline of this is what you need when you're breastfeeding, this is what you need. And I'd done that the first time and it was fine. And this was like almost double that. And that was what I found difficult to adjust to, because it was like, I'm taking a blueprint that should be the same, but it's not. And so once I understood what it was, then it was easier. But again, it's kind of getting that education out there, because I'd never heard of it. I'd never heard of a postpartum hypothyroidism.
It's that being in tune with your body, isn't it? And knowing when to kind of speak to somebody if something's not right, or have a little chat with people. We've had this discussion before about kind of like, there's no open dialogue about the fact that after you've had a baby, you're going to probably have night sweats, and you're going to, there's just so many different things that like you're in kind of a, if you're feeding, you're going to be in like a menopausal situation from your hormones, and you just don't feel like you. And from a training point of view, you're more at risk of injury because your estrogen's going to be lower. And there's all this chat that doesn't get chatted about, and it's that kind of thing. Someone like said to me a few weeks after Zachary, they said something about, oh, have you had the night sweats? And I was like, is that normal? Is that what people? And I'm like, yeah, I've been changing the best.
I've just had this exact experience. My friend the other day was like, have you had the night sweats? I was like, no. And then that night I got the night sweats.
No, but are you not too early? So you got them there? So I got them when I finished breastfeeding. Really bad. I never had anything till then. And they were really like worse than I've had menopausal. Or perimenopausal. Just when I stopped. And maybe for a couple of weeks, and then it was just gone. But yes, but you'd have to actually get a towel and put it down in bed.
I think it's just so many things that just don't get talked about.
There is, and I often find it, like I've said a few times, it's crazy that my job is obs and gynae. I literally am trained in pregnancy and delivery, and there's so many normal things that I don't know until they've happened to me because I've had a baby, which is, again, it's strange that it's not talked about. Is it a stigma thing? Is it because we keep it all a bit under wraps and we just cope with it and get along with it and don't talk about the less glamorous side?
The glamorous side, I think.
But
that's why it's nice when some people that are in the social media show you that they're wearing like a nappy after they've had a baby, and they're like, my tummy looks like this because I just had a baby, and it's going to be like this for quite a long time. Whereas then there's other people that are like on the beach with a bikini on like 2 weeks after they've had a baby. But I think if you can put not the working, because it's not the work, it's just keeping active while you're pregnant. If you put that kind of keeping active while you're pregnant and eating like a normal person, not like a you think you should be when you're pregnant, then you're going to bounce back much quicker, actually. And I think it's having that like kind of knowledge there makes it a little bit easier, really.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll move on swiftly. So, as women approach the menopause, many experience shifts in energy, metabolism, and motivation alongside symptoms such as hot sweats, insomnia, and muscle aches, which is enough to put anybody off exercise. What advice would you give to people about staying active through this stage of their life? Because realistically, this is really important for your long-term health, for you to stay active. In your 50s and 60s, you're laying the groundwork for your 70s and 80s to not be having to be looked after by people.
So we're
like genuinely, always thinking about your future self.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive big believer in the fact that exercise helps you to understand your body better and cope better with whatever is thrown at it. So whenever there's some big event coming up, you will get through it better if you're involved in sport in some ways. So for me, that's like a no-brainer, that it will help you with perimenopause, with menopause, and I think also as much information as possible out there, because I mean, we talked about the fact that pregnancy is really how you feel and you have to listen to your body, and everybody is completely different. It feels like the menopause is even worse in terms of that. Like the symptoms can be so random, and you chat to your friends, and I do think on that front it's much better than the puberty side, because menopausal, perimenopausal women are far more likely to chat to their mates about what's going on than the teenagers are. And we're not embarrassed about it, and we do just chat about everything. And so I think that is massively helpful. So making sure that you've got that core of friends around you that understand what it is, so that you can ask the silly things. I mean, because I almost thought I was pregnant again because I had the sore boobs bit. Which particularly when I was running, because I guess it was the Robin, kind of the sports bra, made it really, really painful. And it never entered my head that was a perimenopausal symptom until I went and Googled it and checked that up. And I seem to have perhaps had less of the more talked about ones and more of the unusual ones. I don't know if that's just because the more talked about ones I was ready and expecting, didn't really notice, or because sport helped minimise those. But other little things like waking up in the middle of the night because my heart rate's suddenly gone up for no explicable reason. I'm like, how can that be a menopause thing? And itchy skin.
Itch is a big one.
But it's like, but none of my girlfriends that I spoke to had actually had that one. They were like, oh, that's a new one on me.
I think, as you said, though, that the information is the main thing, and people know about symptoms, but I think a lot of times now people go on HRT actually without symptoms that are going to be helped by HRT. People go on HRT and they don't understand what HRT is. They don't understand the two hormones that are involved. They don't understand who needs to take what when. And I think that's why we see people that are having complications with HRT, because they haven't actually understand what they're wanting, what they're looking for, and what they can gain through going on it. And I think kind of, as you've just said, information, like just making sure you've got that open dialogue about why you're on something and why it might help or why it might not help. With going back to the pill though, like getting on the right pill, getting on the right HRT, it's all the same kind of conversation, and people kind of, I don't think, get it from the beginning. And
I think with a lot of menopause symptoms as well, the first line is often lifestyle. So exercise can actually help relieve a lot of the symptoms of menopause without you necessarily needing medication. You might do, but exercise, healthy weight, stopping smoking, all of those things actually can help with the menopause symptoms and can make it an easy transition too.
Is there something that you should do then to like map your way through? To be able to, so we talked about the fact that it is very individual. Should you go and see your doctor more regularly? Should you get blood tests? Are there things that you can do to help make it more?
I think you should treat this like you treat kind of periods, like you treat puberty, and you should kind of take it as it comes and treat yourself as an individual, as in a sense of not see what Lorna's symptoms are, not see what Alison's symptoms are, see what your symptoms are. And if you have a symptom that you think is making you not the best version of yourself. You wish you could get rid of that symptom because it's causing X, Y, and Z, which is making you not be able to exercise, not be able to think straight at work, not be able to. Then you see someone and you speak about that symptom to see what we can do with it. And it's that kind of the controlling of symptoms, I think, rather than, well, I'm menopausal, so therefore I should just go on HRT, because actually HRT has not been proven to help with lots of the symptoms that people have. And sometimes it's that people need to be on low-dose antidepressants to help with an anxiety, or they need to get some kind of headspace and have some CBT. So there's lots of different things, and I think it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all. So it's taking that back to, do you know what is causing the problem that's meaning that you can't get up and exercise, or that you feel you can't have an intimate relationship with your partner, or you feel like you can't go out because you're too angry, like what is the symptoms that's worrying you, and let's take it back and have a chat about it. And we also see people that are like, I just feel like I've not had symptoms, do you think I should go on HRT? And you're like, just go with it, like
enjoy it,
you're winning.
If you're living your best life, go with it. Like,
it comes back to that again, education and awareness of what is normal, what's not normal at a phase that every woman is going to go through. Like you all go through puberty, we know a little bit about what to expect or not to expect, and menopause seems to be a lot less well understood generally. But I think general good advice as well is, if you're having some symptoms, is keep a little diary of the symptoms, see if there's a pattern to them, and how much are they actually affecting your life. If they're just symptoms that you can cope with, then you probably don't need anything. But if they're affecting your life, then would be the time to go and have a chat with
definitely.
a GP and see if there's something that can change how it's affecting you.
Yeah, fab. So we've kind of talked about how exercise might help perimenopausal women sort of with some other symptoms. And I just wondered, because I think if you're not a runner, getting into running can be like really scary. And when you've got all those other things going on, how can people do it and like be less scared of it?
Yeah.
I think, again, be educated about it and kind of take those learnings, because actually exercise is one of those things that really, really helps through the kind of menopause. And I didn't know a lot of it. Like, I listened to a podcast, I think it was put in place by Nike Women or something a couple of years ago, actually talking about the importance of keeping up your muscle mass and doing more speed work and working more on kind of HIIT type things rather than just the endurance, because your endurance essentially does stay. And I feel like there's a balance to be had there, because at the same time, because your endurance stays, it is easier, it is more comfortable, it makes you feel better. So I don't think you should just drop it. I think you should be able to keep doing that side of it. But I think it's really important that you do get in the gym and you do kind of weight training around it and really keep your body strong, because keeping that muscle tone is going to help you be able to get all the mental health benefits of just going out for a run without getting hurt and without having to deal with that. So I think that kind of thing, pulling it together in the bigger picture and saying, yes, okay, I'm perimenopausal, I'm menopausal, I need to be working on my muscle mass, but I'm still allowed to do all the things that make me feel better as exercise as well, because I think that's really, really important.
Like, go to your run club, do the couch to 5k. My mum's done the little couch to 5k. She's doing fab, and like the park run. They're so
get
good.
The coffee and the cake afterwards.
Like when we said,
you're building the community there as well. So you're building more people. Might be your own age, might not be your own age, but you're kind of just building that community to just talk to and be able to ask questions about things.
Like we said, with going through puberty as well and going to run clubs and making friends and socialising and chatting with like-minded people.
Ages, right?
It's really important. And especially important, like if you're retired as well, because you might have like lost touch with people that you would
not
usually
seeing the work besties anymore.
I saw something on the news recently, and it was for women who have been through the menopause, and it was a football club. But it was like they had a rule where you couldn't be too aggressive in the football.
Non-contact.
But they did interviews and like we're chatting with the other people who'd joined the club, and everyone was like, it's so fun and I'm so competitive, and it's just it brings it out of me again. And people were like, I've never tried football in my whole life, and here I am now.
Brilliant.
Made new friends, got a new hobby.
Don't need to do anything groundbreaking, do you?
No.
And then, so obviously you've got balancing training, career, a family. How have you found that? And like, have you got any advice for other people trying to balance everything all together?
I think
question.
the biggest thing is you've got to have a supportive team around you. For me, that was my parents-in-law, my husband, obviously, and the kind of physios, coaches, that support network have really got to all be part of the team, and the kids have kind of got to buy into it as well. But at the same time, for me, I did feel kind of really fortunate that I was in a job that I could go back to work full time and still spend a big proportion of my day with my kids. And it was actually them that tied us down in terms of once they start school, then you can't take them traveling around the world with you. But up until that point, yes, I'd be gone for a couple of hours in the morning and an hour or so in the afternoon. But the rest of the time I was there with the kids, and it became something that it worked because we had the support network. So you've just got to be able to, in my situation, I think, leave the kids with someone that you trust and you know they're okay, and be able to go out and focus on the training. And then it helped me to come back and think, right, okay, that's the training side done now. This is now a mum bit. And this is the fun bit. So even if the training session hadn't gone well, leave it at the door. And that was a big rule, particularly given that my husband was my coach once the kids were there. So you kind of don't really want to be still talking about it for the rest of the day. You can talk about it while you're at the track, and then you come back in and then you switch and you're suddenly mum and dad, and it's different. And so I think that I was really, really fortunate about, and the kids have kind of maybe been a little bit overexposed to pros and cons of athletics. I mean, because my daughter said to me at one point, I'm not sure I want to do running because I've seen how upset you get when you get injured, and I've seen that side of it. But my son at the moment really does want to. So they've kind of, I feel like they've got the ability to make their own minds up. And what they have done is have the opportunity to meet a lot of strong people, particularly my daughter. She's had the opportunity to meet and to see how a lot of strong women operate. And I'm sure it's no coincidence then that she is very fixed and she's very determined, and she's got off to Durham University this coming September, and she's organised a lot of that. She's very independent and she's very strong in terms of sorting things out.
You're kind of underselling that she is a strong woman, because she's already come through cancer treatment and she ran the London Marathon as an 18-year-old. Who can say that? So she's clearly taking something in from all of these people around her.
It comes back to that saying that if you don't see it, you can't be it.
She's extremely, because particularly so proud of what she came through, and so grateful as well for the support that we had through that, because at the time she was diagnosed, she was 13, she barely understood what an ovary was. It was kind of just like something in biology class that she'd seen a bit of, but she had no real idea what it was. So when they tell her she's got a tumour in her ovary, it was a little bit of kind of non-recognition. And part of her almost said, she did say to me after, she said, you know what, I was actually relieved. And I'm like, how can you be relieved when they tell you you've got cancer? And she's like, no, I was relieved because I knew something was wrong and I didn't know what it was. And this at least gives me an explanation. And they were very good about, this is the treatment, it's actually a good prognosis, you're going to work through it. It's going to be horrible for 4 months, but you are going to get through it. And she did phenomenally well in getting herself through that, because it's so scary to go through at that age.
Yeah, gosh, for you and for her, the whole family, isn't it? And your extended family. It's not an
what
ideal.
it does also do is give you that sense of perspective. That kind of, so for her, I've asked her a couple of times, but probably one of the things that she finds hard to deal with is the trivial teenage things. Because she says to me, Mom, it's not that big a deal.
But that's
and they're just getting so upset about it, and it's such a big deal. And she really struggles, I'm not going to say to be empathetic, but she struggles to get the significance of it, because she's like, it's not that important. It's like a little teenage drama. I mean, she can have her own teenage dramas, and then they're important.
Your own is different.
That level of empathy and understanding that she's developed through it is phenomenal. And she was actually, before any of that, she was a very empathetic kid. She's very good at looking at someone and knowing.
That's good. We also wanted to ask you, if you could change one thing about how we talk about women's health and exercise today, what would it be? It's probably quite a difficult one to just have one thing. If you have to pick.
I think it is just being more open, more honest, because it is so different for everyone that I feel like it's you're probably in a good place if you can find a couple of people who've had the same thing as you. And it's quite lonely if you haven't. But if you're talking to other people who have also got a load of things that no one else has had as well, it at least helps to get you through that. So I think the more you can talk about it, and actually the more we can talk about it with the men as well.
Yeah.
Because it is really, really important that they kind of understand this is why. Because I'm sure, and there'll probably be some research comes out on it at some point, but I'm sure there's similar things that they go through. And unless we're open and talking about it, there's no way they're going to go first.
Yes.
So you kind of got to be able to express that and go with it.
Yeah. It's that understanding of, it goes back to, education in primary schools, high schools, understanding that even if it doesn't happen to you, it happens to the other half of the population, and we have to be empathetic and kind, and we should all know
Even
about the girls
within
and the
women,
boys. Yeah.
There are some women that have it so much worse than others.
Yeah.
And so even within women, we need to develop that empathy of like, okay, just because I was okay through it doesn't mean it's okay for everybody. They could be having a really, really rough time, and they could really need some support. And so the more we break down those barriers and build up that empathy, the more likely those people that really need the support are going to be able to ask for it without feeling scared to ask for it.
Absolutely.
It's just that open dialogue, actual open dialogue.
And that brings us quite nicely into myths, because a lot of the time, if there is no education, all these myths come up, and we like to bust myths. That's one of our
we do a
favourite
little
things to
myth
do.
busting.
Okay.
Shall we take the
Are you
first
going
one?
for the-
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the menstrual cycle makes women too inconsistent to train seriously. I feel like we can blow that one straight
we
out.
have our evidence on screen right here.
No, I think that one is total. I think what is useful is for your coach to understand where in the menstrual cycle you are, because particularly if you're a younger girl and you've just recently started your periods, because you may not yet know your body. And actually my coach was really, really perceptive at being able to understand that. And one of the biggest things, I would never have come down and said, I'm too tired today, I'm not feeling great, I want to change the session. So he would change the session and like basically look at me and say, like, nah, we're doing this instead, to something that was different. And it wasn't because physically I couldn't have got through it. I think it was because mentally, that little bit of subpar, he'd take one look at my face and think, nah, she can't take that today. So let's just move it around to something that's not as measured, still a hard training session. So it's not that you can't do it. I just think you need to adapt to more the mental side of it through those intense cycles.
Give yourself grace.
Another myth. You can't exercise on your period as it makes you cramp more.
Well, I feel like if you
It's
can...
the opposite, isn't
if
it?
you can,
It actually helps, doesn't it?
It definitely
improves.
helps.
Yeah.
And if you can just like kibosh a world record while you're doing it, then like, I mean, that's all right for some people, not all of us. But
It's the endorphins that you release whilst you're exercising help to alleviate pain as well. So it's the complete opposite of that. Although it might
But the
feel
other
difficult to
thing-
get going.
Doesn't it shorten your period to actually exercise through it?
I don't think it shortens it per se, because it's that, I think that goes back to the myth of it comes out quicker if you exercise, which I don't think it comes out quicker if you exercise. Well, it doesn't come out quicker, but it makes you feel better by exercising. The endorphins help. We've had this discussion before about having intercourse, having intercourse on your period, and it can make you feel better because of the endorphins. And I think it all goes back down to the same thing.
Yeah, it can distract you.
Yeah.
Doing exercise can distract you. You'll get back and be like, oh, I've not got my cramps anymore, because I just completely forgot about it because I was too busy listening to my podcast and running.
Exactly.
But as we've said now, it might be fine for some people, and as you quite rightly said before, Paula, that other people might have such severe cramps that they are genuinely stuck in the bath on a bed with a hot water, like that kind of thing.
Go.
So I'm not minimising at all what some people go through, but for people that have got cramps that are on the period and they feel up to be able to exercise in, then that is a good thing to do.
The next one sort of ties into it, which is what we've just said. If you run enough, you just won't have periods, and that's actually really great contraception and is a really healthy lifestyle. And hopefully we can just
I'm
deal
not
with
sure
that.
not having periods is contraception.
Imagine.
TikTok said it was.
I mean, it wouldn't be fully contraception, but it would be contraception in a sense. If you're not having periods, you're not ovulating, you won't be able to get pregnant.
Yeah,
not
but it's also
advisable.
so bad for so many
Yeah.
other reasons. And
But even that's a myth, though, isn't it? Because like at any point, body can just release an egg.
oh yeah, totally. And we tell people that have had premature ovarian insufficiency, we tell people that are 50 years old, we tell people that are postnatal and breastfeeding that at any point you can release an egg and we won't know when that will happen, especially if you're not having regular cycles, so you can always get pregnant.
Which actually, I'm just going to digress totally and run by. So I had a non-hormonal coil fitted, and then when I think I was 48, my gynecologist removed it because it was time to change it. And then I'm like, okay, so what do we do now? And he's like, well, you don't need to do anything. I'm like, 48? I said, but I didn't start my periods until I was nearly 15, so I'm fairly sure I've still probably got a lot of... It's like, well, how many pregnant 48-year-olds have you seen walking around?
At least a few.
And were you still having regular periods with the coil?
Yeah.
So that's terrible advice.
I'm still having regular.
Thank God you didn't take that advice, though. I mean, that's terrible because you could definitely have got pregnant.
I've seen, and I know it's not the norm, is it? So I suppose maybe that's what they're trying to say, but the recommendations are that you carry on contraception for definite, and we do pregnancy tests for everybody that comes in for definite, unless you're complete menopausal. And I have seen people that have come for a hysterectomy, somebody over the age of 50 who was pregnant. So you can get pregnant, and yes. God, as a fertility doctor, I feel like I need to backtrack massively here because I'm telling people that you can't get pregnant and you need to get pregnant earlier if you want to have a pregnancy. But from a contraception point of view, if you don't want to be pregnant, then you should use contraception for definite.
Yeah.
And excessive running's not it.
No.
Another myth is, well, is it a myth? Carb loading doesn't work for women because of hormones.
Yeah, no, not true.
No.
You can still carb load.
Just because of hormones.
What is carb load?
Why would you even think that's true?
Carb loading, isn't that like if you have like pizza before a marathon or like pasta and then slow release energy?
It's basically, I mean, it goes back to the whole REDS question, because if you're in REDS, you're basically losing muscle mass, and if you're running a marathon, you don't have enough glycogen stores in your body to get you past 20 miles, so you need to store it in your muscles, and you store the glycogen in your muscles, and that is what carb loading is doing. So it's basically in the 72 hours before the race up to pretty much 12 hours before you're pretty much done, so you've got to stock it in that period. And you've got to get that in there, and it makes no difference whether you're in your period then or not, or when your period's due. You just need to still get that muscle glycogen in there, because otherwise you will not get through that without hitting the wall.
It doesn't matter what kind of hormones you have. It is worth it.
Male and female need to do
it.
And also it's a great excuse to eat loads.
Literally. So potentially our last myth is kind of funny, having heard what we said earlier about running uphill when you're pregnant.
Okay.
But this is just that running too much as a woman is bad, because the bounce might make your full uterus fall out.
Can you imagine?
Just plop.
That's genuinely what they used to tell people. That is the reason that the marathon was only added to the Olympics in 1984. And they couldn't even run above 800 metres for a long time.
In case
crazy, isn't it?
Because there was all this stuff like your uterus was going to fall out.
This is like a medieval myth.
In all fairness, after you've had a baby, I know Paula said that she went back to running after 10 days. I feel like my womb did feel like it was going to fall out. It didn't, but it does feel like it might fall out.
That's because the muscles weren't strong. It's not just a woman.
It's not just because.
I am baffled that was so recent that was a myth.
It took a long time for that to kind of be dispelled. I mean, even in the 70s, women couldn't run marathons.
Wow.
Absolutely crazy. Well, thank you so much for coming. It's been an absolutely fantastic episode. We've learned so much. I'm sure our listeners will just love this. You're so engaging and you are an inspiration to so many people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. That was so good.
That was great. I think we just met Paula Radcliffe.
I'm totally fangirl.
Yeah, we could slightly tell.
She was so good though. She was so open and had such great advice. And I think it's just kind of normal stuff that people should be doing. Like we know that you should exercise in every stage of your life. And she just kind of vocalised that.
She was so real, and it was just great to hear her experience.
I loved her stories about like how she just drops in when she started her period and having a hymen that was difficult for a tampon to go in and out. Like just so real. Really.
And you might even have an invite for Paula's Run Club.
I know.
You can run and listen to yourself.
Amazing.
Like, I would
Imagine that. Just Nick
absolutely
talking
love
about
it.
everything.
I would obviously love that.
Yeah.
But
that was
no,
brilliant.
great guest. Fantastic
No,
episode.
definitely.
Yeah,
Really
we hope you all
interesting.
enjoyed.
Yeah.
So just a little disclaimer, anything that we've said are our own opinions and are not affiliated with where we work and shouldn't be taken as personal medical advice.
And if you've enjoyed the episode, if you've learned something new, then please do leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts.
It may seem like a little thing, but giving us a 5-star review pushes the podcast out to as many people as possible. And we really want to break down barriers, bust myths, and give out really good information.
And we really want this episode and this information to reach as many people as possible. So if you want to be a part of that ripple effect, then hit the like button.
And make sure you're following us and engaging with all of our content on social media at Between Two Ovaries on all platforms.
Thank you.
Bye!